So here we go again. The environmentalists are on their podium, waving their arms in the air, screaming the world's about to come to an end. Global warming. All my life it's been something, one thing or another. Sea level rise, the ice sheets are retreating, the world's going to freeze, turn into a snowball Earth. Back to global warming, climate change, the sea level, CO2 levels rising. It's all absolute poppycock. It's all nonsense. Sure, it might be getting a little warmer out, and I mean today here in Canada, Eastern Canada, it was 35 or 36 degrees Celsius, around 100 degrees Fahrenheit or so, and it's a little warmer than we're used to, and it'll probably continue to change because things change. Nothing stays the same. The Earth is going to go through cycles. It's going to go cooler. It's going to get warmer. It's going to get cooler. It's going to get warmer. And if we lived long enough, because our short lifespans are such a short blip on the scale of Earth's existence, if we were able to live long enough, we would see these things much like a heartbeat or the inhalation and exhalation of a set of lungs. And this is going to continue for time immemorial. It doesn't matter what humans do or what we don't do. And if humans are getting to be too much of a burden, Gaia and Mother Earth will just kick us the hell off. And that'll be the end of it. But you're not going to kill the planet. I mean, it's not proper to shit where you eat. And we shouldn't be throwing chip bags out the window as we're driving down the highway. But CO2 emissions from humans are not creating climate change. Plastic in the ocean from too much disposable crap that only lasts a week instead of building something that lasts a lifetime is an issue. There's no doubt about that, and I'm sure that that's having its own environmental impact. But as far as the Earth not being able to absorb that and get rid of that in its own time without humans, it'll do it just fine. That doesn't mean we should be doing it. I'm not advocating throwing your plastic bottles in the ocean. I don't even think we should have plastic bottles at all. We should go back to glass. And I don't think we should have Keurig cups and disposable diapers and Pampers, except in certain circumstances. But these things are unnecessary waste. They're waste of good products, waste of oil. They're waste. They're waste for the almighty dollar. The problem with environmentalists, they think it's getting too hot and they want things to stop. But the problem with the capitalists is they need things not to last so they can sell more of them. And somewhere in the middle is the consumer who's led to believe that their consumption is making the earth warmer at the same time wanting conveniences. Well, I can understand them wanting life to be convenient. There's no reason to throw cigarette butts on the ground if you're inclined to smoking. There's no reason to to buy products that are, one single use and disposable for the most part. But these things are not directly attributable to climate change. The CO2 emissions of humans are negligible in the whole scheme of things. Mount Etna is erupting and Iceland's erupting all over the place, and so is Hawaii. And these volcanoes spew more CO2 in a day than we could in 100 or 200 years when they're erupting full bore. And they erupt a lot. And if you look closely behind me and around me, you'll see lots of greenery. And plants require CO2 to thrive. And below 100, well, really 180, 200 parts per million, they start to suffer. We're at 400 parts per million, which is 0.4%, give or take a little bit, rounded numbers. Well, our CO2 on the planet, if you believe ice cores, has been way higher than that. And when CO2 is way higher, the plants are way bigger. When the plants are way bigger, they breathe in CO2, they breathe out more oxygen, so there's more CO2, there's more oxygen. Humans, insects, and everything else that breathes oxygen is much bigger, and they thrive because of it. And there's a balance. So if insects and humans and animals get bigger and plants get bigger, by scale, at that period in time, everything looks relatively the same to whatever is in existence at that point in time. Now there's less CO2 and less oxygen. Plants are smaller, more sparse. Humans are smaller. Insects are smaller. Nature looks after all this stuff without any of our help. to say that putting more CO2 in the air is detrimental to humans is absolutely ludicrous. Without CO2, plants can't thrive. Without thriving plants, we can't create oxygen. Without oxygen, humans are screwed. You know, 73 or 72 or 73% of the air around us is nitrogen. Then you got a whole bunch of other gases. And I mean, between CO2 and oxygen, well, there's more oxygen than CO2, but there's not a lot left for living life forms to consume. And to think that CO2, which makes all these plants thrive, is a poison to humans is ridiculous, because as we create more CO2, the plants get bigger, they make more oxygen, as I just stated. It's a circle. It's the circle of life. It just keeps going in a circle. And now we got Bill Gates out there spewing even more nonsense about cow farts. Going to be the end of the planet. Well, I don't know if he's willfully ignorant, stupid, or an evil, conniving, maniacal, lying bastard, but cows don't fart. Okay, they don't. They might belch once in a while, but they're ruminants. They have 4 stomachs, and it's pretty much physically impossible for them to fart. They'll bloat, but they won't fart. And so I wish somebody would just take a cow patty, cow turd, stick it in Bill Gates' mouth and shut that SOB up, because he has no idea what he's talking about whatsoever. This is a guy that run around with his hands in the air screaming COVID's going to kill us, and West Nile and the avian flu and what else, and he wants to just stick the jab you. We'll just jab them in the arm. A direct Bill quote, we're just going to jab them while he's making billions. So don't worry about it. Relax. Everything is good. If we get a little bit more CO2, we'll get a little bit more plants. We get a little bit more plants. We get a little bit more oxygen. You know, byproducts that are not single use unless you're absolutely forced to, for whatever reason. Byproducts that last. You know, wooden chairs, or that deck chairs instead of plastic ones that crack up in 2 or 3 years from the sun and are crud to begin with, and hard to get rid of when you're done with them. I mean, a piece of wood, you fire it in the woods and it just rots. It's easy. That's what it's supposed to do. And instead of Keurig cups, brew a pot of coffee, and if you can't drink it all at one time, I'll leave it in the pot and microwave it, or heat it on the stove when you need some more. But cloth diapers. My children were raised on cloth diapers. It's not that hard to wash them. These are simple choices. But adding the CO2 to the point where it's detrimental to human health. I mean, now some of the toxic gases we put in the air are probably not so good, from burning different things. But fossil fuels and gasoline are not, the CO2 emitted from that are not creating global warming. That's, I just don't believe that. And electric cars, people are betting on to save the planet. It's absolute nonsense. Got to have about 168 or 170 kilometers or 100 miles, 120 miles of mileage owed from them to equal the environmental footprint of manufacturing a car over and above that of a car with a nice engine, internal combustion engine, before you even get started. And that's not even discussing lithium batteries and mining and cobalt and little children in Africa down in holes being buried alive because they're trying to get the products for electric cars. I mean, and fires we can't put out. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. So if you are in that corner where you believe that electric cars are going to save us and they're going to save the planet from CO2 because they have less CO2 emissions, well, I hope that helps you sleep well at night while you have your electric car plugged in, especially here in North America, where about 70% of all energy is generated by coal-fired power plants. So you're literally plugging your car into a coal-fired power plant and making it ramp up and burn more coal to charge all your friggin' cars. So, and if you're plugged into solar, well, solar panels are made from petroleum and they're not environmentally friendly at all, and they have a very short lifespan, the same as wind turbines, and these things kill animals like crazy. Wind turbines are chopping them up, birds as they're flying through the air, and solar panels are zapping them out of the sky like magnifying glass when the birds fly overhead. I mean, you take a field of thousands of these panels all reflecting the sun back, and the bird flies over, it's cooked chicken in a second, drops to the earth dead. These kill way more birds than mirrored glass in buildings and cities. So you know, if you want air conditioning and modern conveniences, you're going to have to come up with a different plan than solar panels, which I believe in, but mass scale they just don't work. Turbines and electric cars, and you're going to have to stop worrying about CO2 and get on to things that we are actually sustainable, things we can do, and things that work, and maybe look a little bit more behind us than ahead, because some of the things that they were doing in the past were, they had some pretty good ideas, and they served them well for centuries. And as modern folk, we tend to think that they were somewhat backwards and didn't know what they were doing. And that might be a bit of a mistake. So snap back to reality. Look into what you're talking about. Try and find out if what you're saying is actually correct. Just look into where the components for a lithium-ion battery for a Tesla comes from. Canada's a producer of cobalt, but we make enough barely for cell phones. Look at African cobalt mines, and look at lithium mines, and the waste, and the oil we use to get it out of the ground. If you took all the ICE engines in vehicles, and when I say ICE, I mean internal combustion engines, off the road, it's about 10% of global emissions, and we would have the ramp up, or some would argue 15%. So let's say 15%. We're going to high end, and then some would argue that the cost of producing that many more batteries offsets that savings by at least half. And then, of course, you have the added trucking and shipping that would have to be put in place and you're not building ships going circumnavigating this world anytime soon with batteries that are efficient. And I'll sure as hell, if you look at some of the ships out there now that are having trouble with EVs catching fire on them and the trouble they're running through, I certainly wouldn't want to be on a 1,200-foot vessel with batteries when that thing ignites, because you're all going to die. So, cow farts, Bill Gates, shut up. Just go back to ripping people off on your windows and forcing us to download shit and buy stuff we don't need and don't want, because you've been really good at that. And stop talking about cow farts. Cows don't fart. Cow farts are not ruining the planet. Cows are not ruining the planet. And if you're going out there to buy Bill Gates homegrown beef, well, you're crazy. It took oil to grow it. Anyway, I'm going to go ponder something else. Have a great day. Cheers.